Hey guys.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good.
Yeah?
When had nerded out Friday night. Went to y'all like Michael Keaton, Tim Burton's Batman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I went to go see the showing with the symphony. So they have a live symphony that plays throughout the movie, all the soundtrack.
Wow.
It was packed. Like the whole arena was packed. So they show the whole movie, and then they have the symphony there the whole time, and they just play the soundtrack throughout the movie. It was actually pretty cool. It was a fun experience. Plus the movie's amazing. I love Tim Burton. I nerd out about him. So that's my movie nerd in me.
That's awesome.
Was
Yeah,
it
cool.
the Atlanta Symphony?
No, it wasn't Atlanta. It was up at Cobb Energy Center.
Okay.
So, but Olmsted, I think was his name. The composer was a famous composer. I forgot who he was though, but because of course it's Danny Elfman, but he wasn't there, of course.
Come on. Why wasn't Danny there?
I know, right? That would have been a whole other ball game right there. But I like symphonies. I don't know. They're cool. They're neat. I like them.
Yeah. I love any live music. Any music that's live.
Yeah.
I mean, even jazz. You name it. Jazz, symphonies, R&B. It doesn't matter. But most of it I can't listen to. Like, I wouldn't go, let me play some jazz.
Yeah.
If I'm out and about and it's playing, dude, love it.
Yeah.
Love live music.
Are you one of those people, like, I've been listening to a lot of Zach Bryan lately, and he's coming into town in August. I think he's down at the, is it State Farm Arena? What's the arena called now? The where the Hawks play? Used to be
so.
Phillips.
Yeah,
Is
I
it
think
State
it is
Farm?
State Farm.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be playing there, and my friend was like, "Oh, you want to go?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Like his music again, he leans country. That's not like arena type music. Do you know what I mean? Like he's more of like go to a bar and listen to, not going to an
Yeah.
arena and listen to.
I mean, I can understand that unless he's putting on like a show, maybe like Garth Brooks put on a show. Like that was some country you'd go see and go,
Well,
whoa. And he's running all over the stage. And I mean, if it's just some dude standing up there like playing his guitar and
Yeah.
not moving and singing in a giant arena, I don't know.
like I almost went to go
I guarantee
see.
there's pyrotechnics though. If you're in an arena, you're
Yeah.
like, okay, look, how are we making this awesome?
Oh,
Get the
nah.
pyrotechnics. Get the screen guys out here.
Oh, no.
We need to
He
figure
ain't
this out.
he ain't Lady Gaga, that's for sure. But I mean,
Oh,
similar.
really?
Like I was gonna go see. He's like he's more chill, kind of like a Bob Dylan. So I was gonna go see Bob Dylan last year, but he was at the Fox Theater, and my buddy was like, like I just don't really see Bob Dylan playing at the Fox Theater.
I
Like
could
he's
totally
more of a
see him at the Fox.
he's
Yeah.
more of like a masquerade type, not the Fox Theater.
Bob Dylan? Bob Dylan's like 1,000 years old. He's not playing at the Masquerade. The Masquerade's like dirty and punky and rock.
But
and
that's
Bob
Bob
Dylan-
Dylan though.
No, dude, Bob Dylan, no. Bob Dylan is like, the Fox is exactly where he would be playing.
No,
Yeah, 100%. Oh, dude, yeah. all
really?
day. Yeah, yeah.
No, he's like one of those guys you just run into like the bar, and he's just like super elusive. He's like, okay, I'll play for 10 people, and then he goes away for 2 years.
That's Bob Dylan like 1968. I don't think that's Bob Dylan 2024.
Really? He's still very elusive, I feel like.
You know what's amazing is that Bob Dylan is still alive.
Yeah.
Guy's old as
Love
dirt.
that guy.
Here's to Bob Dylan.
Here is to Bob Dylan.
One of the
Way
one
to
of
be
the
Bob Dylan.
greatest songwriters ever.
You like you some Bob Dylan, don't you, buddy?
I do. I like him. I like good songwriting. That's
I love good song, yeah.
That's my big thing.
Well, like talking about State Farm Arena, two of the bands that I saw there last were Tool, which puts on a fantastic, like, all this stuff's going on. And at the time, they had these giant people on stilts and these twirly
fun.
people, and it was
Wow.
crazy. And then I saw Radiohead, and Radiohead, I mean, again, giant screens with all these just amazing visuals that kind of went along with their music, and so that was kind of fun. Like again, they weren't running all over the stage, but there was
They
a
didn't
lot
need it.
going on. Yeah, they didn't need it.
Yeah.
There was a lot to look at, So I just couldn't see like a Bob Dylan or like was it Zach Bryan? Is that right?
Yeah.
Playing like a giant. I don't know. I mean, especially if
Yeah.
you're just kind of quiet. I don't know.
Yeah,
It
I mean
seems like
they're
there's
chill.
more going on.
Yeah, they're more folksy. That's the word I'm looking for, folksy.
Folksy.
You don't really get
Okay.
like a folksy vibe in like State Farm Arena.
No, not at all. Not at all. No.
You know,
I'm sorry, Josh.
sorry, I'm in
You
a
should call his management.
folksy genre right now. I know I should. I should be his manager. No,
Hey, Zach Ryan, if
we
you're
both
listening
know
right
you, Todd,
now-
are the better manager out of all three of us.
No, it'd be you, Josh. You just look at him and he would melt. He'd melt like butter in your hands, Josh.
That's wonderful.
Got
I
money.
always wanted to see Radiohead live.
Oh,
That's what I want to say. When Todd,
That's it?
when you were talking about Radiohead,
Yeah.
I've seen him obviously on like, you remember that MTV in the 90s, you know, they'd be playing some live show and MTV
Yeah.
would be there to focus on it. And I think that's the only thing I've ever seen him play where it was live-esque, you know, but I would love to be there in a radio, you know, hearing Kid A, hearing all of it, hearing Radiohead, and it's
I think that's one of my favorite albums, man. Kid A.
Oh gosh, Kid A was a masterpiece,
Dude,
and so was
so good. Rainbows.
the one before it. OK Computer.
Okay, Computer. That was a great one.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
That's
they're-
where they really blew up because
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like early 90s Radiohead versus Radiohead nowadays. I feel like that's two different bands, too. I mean,
there
it's-
really is a difference.
Oh my gosh, they've gotten like more mathematical. I think when they first came out, it was very fit in the scene. I would almost imagine that their management and label were probably like, okay, yeah, just tone it down a little bit. Let's fit with the scene. And then once they got established, they were like,
And they
"F the
did.
scene." Yeah,
And they did Creep,
yep.
and they
yeah,
blew
I
up
mean,
there,
it fit,
and then it was
fit
just
it, yeah.
just. I mean, and
that's an artist. That's a true artist. There, you have to evolve with the culture somewhat.
You
Yeah.
have to. You have to. Yeah.
Because if not, you're just going to be Mariah Carey singing Christmas song the whole time.
Ooh. Well, tell us how you really feel there, Josh.
Yeah, I mean,
Poor
She
Mariah
comes out every
Carey ended up
Christmas.
Think of
there.
hers is that's the only song I know of hers.
well, because she comes out every Christmas. Other than that, she's in her cave and she's just hiding out, you know.
That's-
And then
you know.
once Christmas time comes around, she emerges from her cave, and everyone goes, "It's Mariah Carey!" Oh my god!
It's funny.
Oh my gosh! There she
The memes have been pretty much descripting that very thing.
That's why I'm going that way, because that's exactly what they're saying.
Poor girl.
I don't think.
What
she's
did she
poor.
sing? You know, well, right. She's doing just fine. You wonder though how many of them are happy. That's the truth of it. Did they get what they want? Are they happy? I'm sure she is, I guess. Don't know. Never met her.
Maybe. I don't know. Well, speaking of being happy and what happy even means, today we're going to chat about consciousness.
I like it.
So let's roll that wonderful bean footage intro and get straight into it.
Gonna use my last wish on the elephant in the room. Gotta take a deep breath before the smoke begins to bloom. Got it makes me nauseous trying to find you through these fumes. Better hope the stairs I clear, the elevator is no use.
Created by human.
Man, pump me up.
Dude, I'm on fire.
Far.
I'm on fire right now. So
Far. That's a far.
consciousness.
Is that how they say it? Is that
Consciousness.
what they say in the Midwest too? Far.
They say
fire.
I'm on fire.
I'm
No,
on
I don't know if
fire.
it's Midwest or Southern. It's more
I
Southern.
mean, it's Southern for
than
sure. I
far.
just wonder what they say in the Midwest.
Man, that was far.
Fire. They say fire. I'm on fire.
So the three of us are really from a different part of the country, right?
We really are.
We almost hit every region.
Almost, yeah.
Tim is
I'm
West
here in
Coast.
Georgia.
We skip
Yeah.
Mountain. I'm Central, and you're
I'm
East Coast.
Northwest, Pacific Northwest.
Well, now you're just
It's a
getting
difference.
fancy. It is a difference, but it's
It's like
still
a
the same.
diagonal
You're on the
line,
West Coast.
from here, Georgia, all the way up to Tim.
It really is kitty
And
corner.
you're in the middle, Tim.
I've always said that the Pacific Northwest is like the Shire. It's like we're a bunch of little hobbits up there. You know, it's so
My
weird.
dream
You
place.
go up there, it's a bunch of hobbits.
Sounds
We're like
great to
7
me.
years behind everything.
Smoking pipe weed.
Yeah,
That's what
smoking
the Shire
pipe
was.
weed. Visited by wizards and druids.
Druids, yeah. Josh, what does that have to do with consciousness?
Well, druids were the holders of the Conscious Coalition.
Oh,
It was a contract that they signed with the Druid nation of Belgium.
Oh, Belgium.
And they were in charge of all the consciousness that happened in the region, and therefore it became like a whole thing. And now we're going to talk about it.
Okay. So just that region, just in the Belgian region?
At the time, yeah. And then, of course, it split off into other coalitions and other
Okay.
languages.
Got you.
Kind of
Okay.
like
So
denominations, you know?
Oh, yeah. So what kind of period of time are we talking about here? How long did this take from the beginning of consciousness until today?
Yeah, I think the coalition started in 1651.
Oh, shit. So we haven't been conscious very long.
No. They weren't recording the consciousness before that. So technically, consciousness really only started in 1651.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense, Josh. I don't know
We
if that's
should we should seriously do an episode on druids because druids are fascinating.
Come on.
Oh, I love druids. I mean,
Right?
that's- all three of us sitting here probably come from a druid type culture. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Druids are definitely fascinating.
They are. What fascinates you about druids?
I mean, I guess it's kind of they're I think it's the kind of mystic side of them, which I'm not very familiar with druid lore and religion. But are they religious? Do they have to be religious?
I think there was a level of spirituality that was along with them. There was a level of, I think, multiple gods in worship. They were very, what do you call it? When every season comes, they were very, when the harvest and I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think there was a lot going on with those guys. I believe
mythological.
it was, yeah, I mean, but I think they really thought like they were very much like Egyptian culture back in the day, where there were multiple gods for things. Like if you wanted a good harvest, then you had to pray towards this god. If you wanted to, I mean, if you really think about the Vikings and stuff like that in their culture, I mean, that was kind of Druid-esque, where they had all these different gods and everything like that. I mean, you had kind of one main, but that's kind of what the Druids were. And I think they were very, from my understanding, they were travelers. And I think they were cool people, because even if you look at the Stonehenge is thought to be created by the Druids. That, there's possible, they say, well, maybe it was a time, the sun, it was some type of clock, or maybe it kind of lets you know when the seasons were going to change, is it winter, the solstices and all that kind of stuff. But it was also believed that it was very Druid in origin. So we don't know enough about Druids, because there's no real written history about them, other than what we've kind of picked up and in archaeology, or what we found just written in other cultures. But I think they exist like thousands and thousands of years. That's just kind of who they were. They were these nomadic, spiritual, earthy type hippies. Every once in a while might have sacrificed a virgin.
I mean, you got to enjoy an earthy kind of hippie sometime.
I do. Except I don't really care for patchouli. Like it's like when you go to the bathroom and then you have a number 2 and it stinks really bad, but then you spray like lemon spray, but it just smells like shit and lemon spray. That's kind of like what patchouli smells like. It smells like ugh and flowers. Anybody, anybody else feel that way?
I will believe you on that, Todd.
Well,
Actually, I do agree. I do agree
Yeah,
with you
you
there. When you spray like Lysol or whatever, it just mixes with the
Oh yeah.
previous smell, and it's just like, well, now it's just weird.
I have been fond of the potpourri. That's if you do that right and you get that liquid in there before you go, it's actually pretty helpful.
Wait, so how does that work? What's potpourri?
Potpourri is a oil or something that you pour in first, and then when you go poo, it drops in, right, and it goes past the barrier of this oil, and the oil's nice and smelly, and it just nothing leaves. So not even the little molecules are leaving.
I thought it was
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
spray.
It
Wow,
is.
that's
It's like a
very high
spray.
maintenance. You must take a
It's
very
m-
high maintenance
but-
shit.
Well, do you want to smell and think about it? You got these little poop particles that are going up in your nose. So do you want that, or do you want just potpourri? The poop. The
Is it
stuff that you spray?
particles?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what causes pink eye, by the way.
yeah. Dude, that stuff floats up and gets in our toothbrush, and I mean, not to be graphic, but that's
Oh
what
yeah,
it
I'm
does.
definitely a close the lid before you flush. I mean, you got to
Yeah.
close the lid before you flush.
Yeah,
100%.
and that helps a lot. But if you just let it sit and all that funk is leaving, and that smell, that's all the little tiny particles making its way out into the air.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've really enjoyed this talk about shit.
This has been great.
This
And
has
that's
been great. Let's go ahead and wrap
Consciousness.
up the episode here.
Consciousness.
Oh yeah,
We're
we
done.
were going to talk about consciousness.
Oh right.
That's right. Dang it. Today we're going to talk about consciousness. So, our previous episode, we discussed some near death, and it's going to kind of be the theme of this season. So, in tying in with some near death,
You're welcome.
consciousness- Yeah, you're welcome. Consciousness comes into play because that's kind of part of it. You know, what happens when we die? What is consciousnness even really? And does it exist in the brain? Is it outside in the ether? These are things that we've talked about in the past, but I wanted to play some videos of a couple people who dive into that. One of the videos is from a gentleman named Stuart Hameroff. Now, Stuart Hameroff is an American anesthesiologist and a professor at the University of Arizona. And he is fascinating. I've seen multiple videos from him in the past, and he talks about anesthesiology and the way that it works with consciousness. So I love his take on it. So we're going to play a video from him here in a minute. The other person that we're going to talk about or hear a message from is Anil Seth. And Anil is he's a British neuroscientist and a professor of cognitive and computational neuroscience at the University of Sussex. Sussex. And
Sussex?
so Sussex. Yeah, at the University of Sussex. And this dude, I love the way he talks. In this TED Talk, man, he kind of lays it out there. But he talks again about the reality and where is consciousness and what does that mean in the world that we see around us. So these are some great videos. We're going to play these two. And again, I'll stop it, have some commentary. The guys will ask me to stop. We'll have some commentary, and we're going to talk about these two videos. You guys pumped?
I am pumped.
Do it.
Let's do it.
There are cases of awareness under anesthesia that's a mistake. You know, you don't give enough, you run out of gas literally, or there's some other problem where people are aware when they're not supposed to be. And that's a terrible situation that we try to avoid at all costs. As far as we can tell under anesthesia, consciousness is kind of suspended. If you give enough anesthesia, the microtubules depolymerize. But that takes quite a bit more than what you need for anesthesia. Now, there's a dispute about this. Buddhists say, well, consciousness never goes away. And in terms of consciousness in the universe, no, it never goes away. But I think within a particular brain at a particular time under anesthesia, the mechanisms that give rise to consciousness are kind of are suspended. It's kind of like the clutch is out and there's no engagement. And so the patient is unconscious. And just like we're unconscious when we sleep and don't dream, there's no consciousness.
Okay. It's suspended. That's what he's saying. So this is from a guy who puts people under anesthesia often, right? All the time. So he's saying it just puts a pause on consciousness. Like that alone, like we can't skip over that. How do you put a pause on consciousness?
God, I wish I could do that. Right? That's like a superpower. I wish I could do when you get you need to go to bed or whatever, and shut it off.
Just put a pause on it.
Get yourself some of that anesthesia.
You need some anesthesia.
I won't wake up.
Well, you might not wake up, Josh. Well, that's the trick of the game.
Be like that room in Inception where they all are dreaming like long term.
Oh gosh, like in a dream within a dream. They keep going
and
under.
they're all down in the basement, and they're all dreaming like forever. Like they just stay down there and they dream. They're under that anesthesia that they have.
Well, and that's a great point, because when you talk about dreams and being, your consciousness, we do have that. We have where a dream seems like it is hours, if not days, but it's only been minutes. We dream so many dreams throughout a night, but they're only minutes long, even though they feel like forever. I
don't know if this is true, but dreams are actually milliseconds, and that's like the last thing your brain does. It gives you this story that feels like days, but it's like the last thing that you do when you wake up. It's your dreams are actually like somewhere right in between you being asleep and awake, and they only happen in milliseconds. That's what I don't know if that's true, but
yeah, I mean, I've heard that as well, but I also heard that we have multiple dreams throughout the night, tons of dreams. The only ones that we sometimes recall are those very last ones. But I think you're right too about the milliseconds. I think it's
there's
only
like this weird time.
It's only
thing.
moments, but they feel like these long periods of time.
Yeah, I can revisit old houses and places I've been in dreams too. I have this weird ability to go back to places and have like a similar story happen, except maybe, I'll have dreams where I'll go back to a place and let's say I yelled at somebody or something. They'll remember that in my dream and kind of be like, they don't want to talk. Like I've had weird things like that happen, So I have these strange, vivid dreams, places that I revisit all the time. It's crazy.
No, that's super cool. I mean,
next week's podcast is Tim's Dreams.
Yeah, we should. I got a bunch of good ones.
I have heard that people can control their dreams a little bit like that. I've never been able to. Mine are just so random. And sometimes I can't recall them at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know what I thought was amazing? That when I have been recently, I had a fever for like a month, and I mean, for me, a fever is terrible because I dream really well. I get what's called fever dreams when I have a fever. And I've asked a lot of people, have you ever had a fever dream? And they're like, no, what's that? I'm like, really? You've never had one? Nope. Go to the next person. Hey, how about those fever dreams? What are you talking about? Fever dreams? You ever had one? No, what's that? And I'm like, what? Am I the only one that knows what this is? So then finally, if you find another person that's relatively a vivid dreamer, can control their dreams and stuff, they'll go, oh, I know those. Yeah, I've had that. And the only way to describe a fever dream is like, imagine trying to play Tetris, but it's all scrambled and you can only see one piece and you're just fixated on that one piece. And it's just all night long. It's just this scrambled and you're fixated and it's horrible. But man, when you have them for night after night, it does something to you. I was just like, oh, God, I got to get rid of these.
That's freaky. So you're kind of trapped in a dream, but almost in a cycle, like just repeating the same thing. Groundhog's Day, kind of.
Just not even that. It's worse than that. It's like you're dreaming about how you should be breathing because you're sick, but there's as if there's multiple ways to be doing that. But like when you wake up, you're like, Tim, just breathe. Like it's that, and you dream about the one thing all night. It's so weird. I don't recommend them. I hate them. They are the worst things. You can't figure out anything. Nothing makes sense. It's just like scrambled white noise, but you do see things from time to time and you fixate on them.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. That sounds very interesting. I will say this,
it's weird that not a lot of people don't know about it. And I'm like, man, well, good thing you don't, because it sucks. It really does.
No, it sounds like it sucks. I will say this, though. I historically cannot recall my dreams ever. most nights in the morning or whatever, I'll wake up with the assumption that I haven't dreamed at all. Now, clearly I probably have, but I cannot recall anything. I don't even remember dreaming until recently. Over the last month or so, I've been taking a multi-cannabinoid, which it's like a combination of CBD, CBM, CBG, and CB something else. So it's 4 cannabinoids. There's no THC in it. There might be a little bit, but I don't know. But anyways, when I take this thing, that night I can recall, the next morning I can recall a dream. And they've been very, very vivid, realistic, where you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, was that real? Like, and it takes you a second from those types of dreams. It takes you a second to go, okay, no, that wasn't real. That did not happen.
Right.
But it felt like it did. But I don't
here's
know why.
the real world. Here's the
real world. But I don't know why. So for some reason, this multi-cannabinoid has totally been allowing me to recall dreams. And that's fascinating. So again,
that is a fascination.
Is there a blocker sometimes that maybe some, I wouldn't even say medications, just some type of chemical compound that can open up those blocks in our mind. And again, this is kind of where we go back to consciousness. So let's dive back into what Stuart is saying here and see where he goes with this. Again, he's an anesthesiologist that is familiar with kind of the pull on real world and consciousness. Let's see what he has to say.
So I don't see a problem with consciousness kind of being in suspense or being suspended. But there's another effect that I think you were alluding to, we were talking about earlier. And we have these, to avoid awareness under anesthesia, we have these anesthesia brain monitors. And they're simple electrodes. They go here and they measure gamma synchrony, EEG, and a few other things. And they basically give a number, a number from 0 to 100, for example, of the level of awareness. And what the number actually means, what it actually is under dispute. But they work fairly well. They're not perfect, but they work fairly well, such that awake people would be between 80 and 100. And for anesthesia, you want them down between 40 and 60. And you don't really want to take them below that necessarily. Now, these same devices have been used in the last few years, particularly in a study by Dr. Lakshmir Chawla at George Washington University on dying patients. He has a palliative care service. He's an anesthesiologist and an intensive care doctor. And patients who are terminally ill, hopeless, in a lot of pain, suffering, elect to withdraw support. They may be on ventilators, pressors, medications. So they and their family decide, let's just pull the plug, literally. And it's the patient's decision, the family decision. So in so doing, they want to do this in a humane way. And so Dr. Chawla has been putting these brain monitors on these people as they die. And what he's found is just amazing. If you look at the number, as the heart rate slows down and approaches standstill, 0, asystole, and as the blood pressure goes down, approaches no blood pressure, so they might start out at, say, 60 or 70 or 80, depending on their neurological condition, and it goes down to below 40, which is, and then down, say, under 20, almost, in some cases, to 0. And at that point, the heart has stopped or is about to stop. The brain has to be acidotic and basically dying, if not dead. And this number goes almost to 0, and then, with basically no blood pressure, he finds these bursts of brain activity back up to 80, and when he analyzes them, they're in the gamma synchrony range, suggesting they're actually indicators of conscious awareness.
Right? Do you understand what he just said?
Yeah, you're dead, and then all of a sudden you spike again.
Yeah, all of a sudden you spike again. So brain activity, they're monitoring these people that are terminal. They've been taken off of life support, and all of a sudden they're dying. So the body physically dies. The brain activity goes down to 20 or 0. They're gone, right? And then all of a sudden there's this giant spike in brain activity back up to 80, back up to conscious awareness. That's insane.
Is that because, the brain is still living, right? You
No,
still
so,
get blood
no.
moving.
So let me give you an example. So when first responders arrived to try and resuscitate my mom at her home, she had fallen. She was leaned up against the couch, and she was dead. She was basically blue. She was dead there. Well, they were able to get a pulse again and get her to the hospital. And then finally, when we got to the hospital, and we were talking to the doctors. The doctor says we are making the heart pump. We are putting oxygen in her lungs, but there is zero brain activity at this point, right? Mm-hmm. So once the brain dies and there's no brain activity, you're just keeping a body alive. And then the question's posed, like, is there any consciousness left at that point? And the question would be, the answer I think would be no. So at that point, when my mom's laying in that hospital bed and it looks like she's breathing and you know, her heart's pumping, she's not there. Consciousness is gone at that point. But what he's saying is, you know, at some point between death, almost immediately after death, where the body has ceased and the brain has ceased, because what sometimes happens is the body will die and then the brain function will kind of dwindle down, right? So like the heart will stop pumping, but the brain function will start to dwindle down last. And then all of a sudden they're seeing these spikes. So it's just, dude, it's incredible. So let's see what Stuart has to say about, like, what do they think this is when this spikes back up?
And this activity, this end-of-life brain activity, lasts in his study. He studied 7 patients, and 7 out of 7 had the effect. Lasts for anywhere from 30 seconds to 20 minutes in some cases. And, you know, it's tempting to think that this brain activity is actually the near-death experience, the white light, the tunnel, maybe even out-of-body experience, and maybe even the soul leaving the body. Who knows? But of course, these patients die, so we can't ask them. We don't know for sure. But in the future, there may be situations where one of these patients is revived, and we can find out.
The brain activity, they're thinking there that when it spikes like that it might be the near-death experience. So again, we just did an episode on near-death and what happens. There's this whole journey on near-death, right? Like, so again, what usually happens, the doctors say, man, you were gone for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, right? So is that what that is? Is that all that is? I don't personally believe so, but it's very fascinating to think that we can monitor it here on Earth. We can monitor something. And like Stuart's saying here is, are we monitoring the thing that happens at near death, that we really don't die or go anywhere, our spirit doesn't go anywhere, our consciousness doesn't go anywhere? This is just what happens when you die for 3 to 30 seconds to 20 minutes. Or is this the transition? Are we able here on Earth to monitor the transition of somebody, right? Of the soul being removed from the body? I don't know. But it's just, I love it. It's so incredible.
Yeah, I want to, real quick, you know, just thumbing along in a Reddit or whatever, I came across a video that I thought was really interesting. And it's actually right around when we're born, right before. So I didn't know if you knew this, but this was news to me. I was 46 years old when I learned this. That scientists have found out when sperm enter an egg, it gives off an
electrical charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, now come on, that is pretty telling. A soul has maybe just been infused into the very creation of this little thing that's gonna, you know, and who knows, right? And they had a clip, and it almost looked like, you know, just from obviously we're talking about something very small, but it looked phosphorescent, right? It just kind of, and there it was. I had zero clue. Well, I think we all have, right? How would we know? Mm-hmm. But that there was an actual spark that happens between the two finding each other. And maybe that's what we're seeing at the end of life here too. This little spark. Isn't it true too that our weight is infinitesimally smaller after it? So like if you were to describe the brain to go off, and then all of a sudden you weigh me, and I'm like ever so slightly like a little bit less than I was. That's kind of interesting.
The only thing I would say to that, and just to play devil's
advocate,
devil's
advocate,
is that I have heard that. I think it's possibly true, but I've also heard that was only one study that was done, so it hasn't been duplicated. From my understanding, that I think once we can duplicate things.
Are you talking about the egg and sperm?
No. I'm talking about you being weighing less. Like once the soul
less.
leaves the body, that you weigh less. I heard that was one study, and it hasn't been duplicated.
Okay.
Again, I could be wrong. That's just what I recall. But I do. I mean, we talked about this last week. Is that all these things that have been suggested and possibilities and the spirit is this, and this was written in text thousands and thousands of years ago. Science now, I mean, dude, we are in a huge momentum of scientific discovery, and the more technology we have, the more we can look deeper and deeper into things. And I think that, again, it's all pointing to the same stuff. Scientists have a hard time saying that anything is spiritual, that anything has to do with a God or a heaven, and that's fair. But they are indicating the same things, right? When you start talking about multiverses, that our spirits can go, or that are consciousness. They don't use the word spirit; it's always consciousness. That consciousness goes to another dimension. Okay, well I'm not saying it is heaven, but that's basically what they were saying to dumb things down thousands of years ago. Again, it's getting weird, guys.
Oh man.
All right, let's see what old Stuart has to say.
Bring it home, Stuart.
But no matter what, if you can prove that it's the near-death experience phenomenology or the soul leaving the body, for that matter, it's still very interesting to ask, how does the brain, when it's metabolically dead, muster this global coherence? Now, some people say, well, it's just the neurons giving last gasp firings because of buildup of potassium and that sort of thing. But that doesn't work as an explanation because it's globally coherent. There's some kind of communication going on. So he said, I've talked with him about it, and he said that he's seen it hundreds of times. Now, he doesn't see it in every case. He published 7 out of 7 that he saw it in. He doesn't see it in every case, but he sees it a lot. And I've actually, as an anesthesiologist, I've seen it one time in a patient in a heart donor for giving who was brain dead, but still had this effect. So it's really remarkable, and we don't really understand it, but I think we're going to be seeing a lot more about it.
Dude, that's pretty wild.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah. Makes me think of this show. I think there's like how they have pilot season in Hollywood. There's some show that came out that was like, the narrative gets out that you can die and go to heaven, and it's like this whole society is just like having a paradigm shift. People are killing themselves and go, if I can go there, I'm going to go now.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
I wonder if we would get that crazy if we found out that, oh wait, there's another life. Let's do it.
Well, for sure, you'd have a mass exodus.
Sure.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. I think if that were the case, I don't know about you guys, maybe that's a question we can each answer ourselves. I think for me, if that were the case, if they're like, dude, we monitored it, it is actually true, you do go somewhere else and it's way better than here. I think I would worry less about here, meaning I would live a more joyful life, worrying less about the things like, oh, what's going to happen in the future, and
Well, Todd, you can do that now.
I know you can.
Just believe it.
I know you can. Well, that's where it's different, man. And that's where faith versus knowing comes into play. And there are a lot of people
Right.
out there, and I'm definitely not one of them, but there are a lot of people out there that their faith is knowing. Tim, you might be one of those.
I might be crazy enough. I don't know.
No, I don't think it's crazy. I mean, I think it's beautiful. I think my wife is one of those.
I think that, yeah, I mean, I always say to people, like, my faith has done me no wrong. I mean, I think it's taught me some great stuff. It's just the cherry on the top. At the end of the day, do I know exactly? No. But, you know, I keep hearing these wonderful stories and people who come back and they're like, you know, it was a lot more, I was weightless. I was joyful. I was peaceful. It was wonderful. You know, I was home, those kind of descriptive things. They all said, welcome home, Joe, or whatever the guy's name was from last week, you know. That's beautiful to me. And if that's really, truly what it is, then great, you know. And I mean, again, I think when you hear people come back from the dead and they're like, you know, I don't need to really go into it, but they just seem more at peace. They're not freaking out anymore. They are usually pretty just chill. And like, yeah, just glad to be back. And they're not even glad to be back. They're just like, I know where I'm going.
Right. Yeah. Most of them aren't glad to be back. They didn't want to come back, but they do have a calm and a peace now that they're comfortable with what happens next. So they live a more kind of just chilled life existence.
They don't even really talk about it. They're just like, yeah, no, I'm just going to live life, love people like I should.
But you made a great point talking about shared experiences, right? So Stuart even said that, you know, these people who die and they're gone for 30 seconds to 20 minutes of, not gone, they're having this experience, this burst of energy within the brain again for 30 seconds to 20 minutes. And then, you know, the argument is, well, that's just the brain dying. That's neurons firing. That's those types of things. But what doesn't hold weight with that is when we look at a lot of near-death experiences, right? Again, we talked about this last week, that the experiences vary, but yet there are tremendous amounts of similarities, right? Like why then do you leave your body? Why then are you being trajected towards the light? Why then are you met by
your father, your mother,
relatives, Jesus? Again, we said it plays into who you are, but you're always met by somebody. You're always met by somebody to
life
welcome
review.
you and guide you. Why?
I mean, life review is fascinating. If you think about your brain, maybe that's what all the life review is, filing through it all.
Maybe.
You know,
but there's a story. That's the thing, though. If that were the case, if the life review were just this, all of a sudden there's all these visions of what has happened in your life. Okay, I can understand that. Maybe that's the brain dying and everything is rushing at you at once. However, it's not. You're in a room or a bubble. You're being. You can look like it's an experience.
Yeah, it's an experience, and a very well designed one at that. I think too. I feel like with near death experiences, this is what's truly fascinating. I think about it is that there's always this, let's just call it a membrane, a safety area that's kind of like, hey, welcome to the afterlife. If you go beyond this door, you won't come back, right? If you go into that room, you'll get to see the other. Sometimes people get an option. Do you want to go in that room or do you want to go back? And they may go, they think of like their grandma who's still alive and they go, I want to go back. I better go back. They give the option, you know. But there is this weird membrane that kind of exists in the afterlife, apparently, that like you cross over and you do say goodbye to everything you knew. And it is something beyond that door. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That I've heard that a few times, and I thought that was fascinating. So we're actually just hearing the stories coming back where it's almost like a purgatory waiting room of, hey, welcome. This is a little bit of the afterlife. It's not quite the full-on experience. The full-on experience is just beyond this door or horizon, you know. Mm-hmm. But right here, we're going to talk about your life, and then go back, and we want you to, you know, maybe try to love a little better. You know, don't worry about it so much. But I don't know. I feel like there's a clear, obviously there is, because when, you know, a person dies, they're gone, right? We don't see them again. They have crossed that threshold. But in a lot of the ones where they come back, they basically describe it as like, yeah, I could have just stepped over that line and gone right in, and I wouldn't be here,
Oh, yeah.
which is fascinating. So, yeah. Anyway,
No, I'm with you.
I just think it's interesting.
No, it's very interesting. I'm with you because all the people that have had a near death, so they died technically here on Earth, and they had this out of body experience, but they came back to their body. So that's near death.
They were told you're going back.
They were told you're going back, right? So all of them that have had it never crossed into the light. So exactly what you're saying.
Right.
They never crossed into the light. Into the light is you're not coming back. You cannot come back. Right. So, because remember, a lot of them would say, I want to go there. Yeah, I want to go into the light. And their guide or whatnot says, no, that's not for you yet. That's not your time yet.
Yeah.
So
and
it's very...
Some have described hearing a party going on in there. Like there's like
Sure.
a lot going on, and they can hear like laughter and fun, and like it's like interesting.
Yeah, and that's the thing though. Again, like if this is just things firing in the brain as you die, then why not go through the light? Right? Like there's nobody who went through the light and came back. The light is the final boss. It's once you go through, there's no coming back. So again, like why would that be? Why is there that similarity? Right? Again, like Stuart had said, why is there shared similarities worldwide? Mm-hmm. Well, there shouldn't be if this is a personal experience as you die.
Right.
It just shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So our next video that I want to share with you guys is, again, from Anil Seth. Now, Anil Seth, just to reiterate, is this British neuroscientist, and he is, for one, got a really cool voice. For two, he's doing this TED Talk, and it's very cool the way that he talks about consciousness and reality and how we perceive reality and what that means with consciousness. So I want to play this video for you guys, and you let me know, Tim, Josh, let me know when you want to stop.
Can't wait.
This video is about 21 minutes long, so we can burn through some of it. I'm probably going to stop.
Put it at 1.5 times the speed.
Go real fast.
Josh, are you hanging in there?
Yep.
You look like you're about to fall asleep, man.
Josh, don't fall asleep.
You getting tired?
No,
Are you still thinking about the druids? Were you serious about that whole Belgium thing and the druids and the Belgium or were you just blowing smoke? Yeah,
Smoke.
he's like, I don't. Smoke.
Josh.
Okay, that's some pretty good improv smoke
That
there.
was great
you
improv. I
almost
was really
had
impressed.
I was like, wow, Josh, you know a lot about. Are you a druid? I was like, are you a druid?
Do you like how Tim called you out? He didn't yes and you.
I might-
He didn't yes
I
and
mean-
you at all.
No, I didn't. Well, no, I didn't yes and him. I didn't do anything. I just was.
But
Really
now you're
cool
calling him
about it.
out. You're saying no.
Now I'm kind of calling you out. Yeah.
All right, let's check out this video from Anil Seth and his TED Talk.
So just over a year ago, for the third time in my life, I ceased to exist. I was having a small operation. My brain was filling with anesthetic. And I remember a sense of detachment and falling apart and coldness. And then I was back, drowsy and disoriented, but definitely there. Now, when you wake from a deep sleep, you might feel confused about the time or anxious about oversleeping, but there's always a basic sense of time having passed, of a continuity between then and now. And coming around from anesthesia is very different. I could have been under for 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 years, or even 50 years. I simply wasn't there. There's total oblivion. Anesthesia, it's a modern kind of magic. It turns people into objects, and then we hope back again into people. And in this process is one of the greatest remaining mysteries in science and philosophy. How does consciousness happen? Somehow, within each of our brains, the combined activity of many billions of neurons, each one a tiny biological machine, is generating a conscious experience. And not just any conscious experience, your conscious experience right here and right now. How does this happen? Well, answering this question is so important because consciousness for each of us is all there is. Without it, there's no world, there's no self, there's nothing at all. And when we suffer consciously, whether it's through mental illness or pain. And if we can experience joy and suffering. What about other animals? Might they be conscious too? Do they also have a sense of self? And as computers get faster and smarter, maybe there'll come a point, maybe not too far away, when my iPhone develops a sense of its own existence. Now, I actually think the prospects for a conscious AI are pretty remote. And I think this because my research is telling me that consciousness has less to do with pure intelligence and more to do with our nature as living and breathing organisms. Consciousness and intelligence are very different things. You don't have to be smart to suffer, but you probably do have to be alive. In the story I'm going to tell you, our conscious experiences of the world around us and of ourselves within it are kinds of controlled hallucinations that happen with, through, and because of our living bodies. Now, you might have heard that we know nothing about how the brain and body give rise to consciousness. Some people even say it's beyond the reach of science altogether. But in fact, the last 25 years have seen an explosion of scientific work in this area. If you come to my lab at the University of Sussex, you'll find scientists from all different disciplines, and sometimes even philosophers, all of us together trying to understand how consciousness happens and what happens when it goes wrong. And the strategy is very simple. I'd like you to think about consciousness in the way that we've come to think about life. Now, at one time, people thought the property of being alive could not be explained by physics and chemistry, that life had to be more than just mechanism. But people no longer think that, as biologists got on with the job of explaining the properties of living systems in terms of physics and chemistry, things like metabolism, reproduction, and homeostasis. The basic mystery of what life is started to fade away, and people didn't propose any more magical solutions, like a force of life or an élan vital. So as with life, so with consciousness. Once we start explaining its properties in terms of things happening inside brains and bodies, the apparently insoluble mystery of what consciousness is should start to fade away. At least that's the plan. So let's get started. What are the properties of consciousness? What should a science of consciousness try to explain? Well, for today, I'd just like to think of consciousness in two different ways. There are experiences of the world around us, full of sights, sounds, and smells, this multisensory, panoramic, 3D, fully immersive inner movie. And then there's conscious self, the specific experience of being you or being me, the lead character in this inner movie, and probably the aspect of consciousness we all cling to most tightly.
Now, this is something that I constantly think about when I think about consciousness, right? And I think about this world and how sometimes, they say that this world is sort of a matrix, right? Is it real? Are we constructing the world? Anil goes into this and starts kind of talking about that, but I love this idea of there is consciousness world and there is consciousness self, right? And how do you take each one of these? Because self, right, it's an awareness. You are self, right? You're looking out into the world, but what is this world that we look out to?
Let's start with experiences of the world around us and with the important idea of the brain as a prediction engine. Now, imagine being a brain. You're locked inside a bony skull trying to figure what's out there in the world. There's no light inside the skull. There's no sound either. All you've got to go on are streams of electrical impulses which are only indirectly related to things in the world, whatever they may be. So perception, figuring out what's there, has to be a process of informed guesswork in which the brain combines these sensory signals with its prior expectations or beliefs about the way the world is to form its best guess of what caused those signals. The brain doesn't hear sound or see light. What we perceive is its best guess of what's out there in the world.
Now, this perception thing that he's talking about too is, I saw something a while back that said that we are constantly predicting the future, that our brain is constantly predicting the future, meaning that by the time everything has gone through our eyes, our brain has processed it, our brain has created what he's about to go into and talk about, this creating of the world around you, that this takes something like 1.5 milliseconds to happen. So in that delay could be catastrophic for us in the real world. So our mind predicts the next outcome, right? So we know that when a car stops in front of us, our mind predicts that we need to stop too, right? Even though it hasn't really gathered all the information yet visually or audibly. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah. So weird.
Let me give you a couple of examples of all this. Now, you might have seen this illusion before, but I'd like you to think about it in a new way. If you look at those two patches, A and B, they should look to you to be very different shades of gray, right? But they are, in fact, exactly the same shade. And I can illustrate this if I put up a second version of the image here and join the two patches with a gray-colored bar, and you can see there's no difference. It's exactly the same shade of gray. And if you still don't believe me, I'll bring the bar across and join them up. It's a single colored block of gray. There's no difference at all. So this isn't any kind of magic trickery. It's the same shade of gray, but take it away again, and it looks different. So what's happening here is that the brain is using its prior expectations built deeply into the circuits of the visual cortex, that a cast shadow dims the appearance of a surface, so that we see B as lighter than it really is. Here's one more example, which shows just how quickly the brain can use new predictions to change what we consciously experience. Have a listen to this. Sounded strange, right? Have a listen again and see if you can get anything.
So did you guys get any of that? Do you know what that audio was saying?
No.
Josh?
I want a hamburger with fries.
Dude, dead on the money. Dude, for real? You nailed it. I'm just kidding.
Good job, Josh.
Josh, you did not nail it. You're making stuff up again like your druid stuff. Okay? Now, if you're not going to participate, then you're going to have to go home.
Josh, the answer was Belgium.
Belgium is the
Belgium.
answer, Josh. You know that.
Belgian waffles?
No, Belgium. Just Belgium.
All right, so
And Stonehenge. Okay, Stonehenge. It's saying
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge too.
That's it. That's correct.
All right.
So that's actually saying something. I love where he goes with this. So the whole point of this little experiment is none of us know what that was saying. But when you are suggested,
without a doubt.
then it becomes very clear what it was.
Yeah.
So let's listen.
Yeah. This is why Hell's Bells was so successful in the 1980s youth group, because they were like, listen, Queen is backmasking in their music, okay? So we're going to play Under Pressure, okay? We're going to play it forward. Boom, 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 right? Mm-hmm. Under Pressure. And then they go, okay, stop the tape. Now we're going to play it backwards. And then, they play it backwards for you, and it's like, but of course they have the subtitles down there below you. Start to smoke marijuana is all you could hear because it was, right there. Like they subtitled it for you, just conveniently so.
They
and so then, you're thinking, oh my gosh, he's trying to get me to start to smoke marijuana.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is a great example of that because once you hear the audio that Anil's about to play, you go, oh, no, I totally hear that. So, again, back in the day, if you wanted to suggest to a bunch of youth group kids that things were evil, it was easy to do.
Easy, just suggest it, and they heard it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
Still strange. Now listen to this.
I think Brexit is a really terrible idea.
Which I do. So you heard some words there, right? Now listen to the first sound again. I'm just going to replay it. Yeah? So you can now hear words there. Once more for luck. Okay, so what's going on here is the remarkable thing is the sensory information coming into the brain hasn't changed at all. All that's changed is your brain's best guess of the causes of that sensory information, and that changes what you consciously hear. Now, all this puts the brain basis of perception in a bit of a different light. Instead of perception depending largely on signals coming into the brain from the outside world, it depends as much, if not more, on perceptual predictions flowing in the opposite direction.
Now, this is what I was just saying. Perceptional predictions. Again, car stops in front of you, you react. Our brain is programmed to predict a situation. That's
Pretty
incredible.
amazing.
Well, when you think about alcohol or, being inhibited on some type of drug, and the biggest problem with that is your reaction time, because now your natural perception to an event is altered, and it's no longer safe. So I love this. This is such a cool part, so let's really pay attention to this.
We don't just passively perceive the world, we actively generate it. The world we experience comes as much, if not more, from the inside out as from the outside in. Let me give you one more example of perception as this active, constructive process. Here we've combined immersive virtual reality with image processing to simulate the effects of overly strong perceptual predictions on experience. In this panoramic video, we've transformed the world, which is in this case Sussex campus, into a psychedelic playground. We've processed the footage using an algorithm based on Google's Deep Dream to simulate the effects of overly strong perceptual predictions, in this case to see dogs. And you can see this is a very strange thing. When perceptual predictions are too strong, as they are here, the result looks very much like the kinds of hallucinations people might report in altered states or perhaps even in psychosis. Now think about this for a minute. If hallucination is a kind of uncontrolled perception, then perception right here and right now is also a kind of hallucination, but a controlled hallucination in which the brain's predictions are being reined in by sensory information from the world. In fact, we're all hallucinating all the time, including right now. It's just that when we agree about our hallucinations, we call that reality.
I mean, that's fair, right? When we agree, we call it reality. Let's go back to a near-death experience, even prior to that people that are on their deathbed. My mother's cousin was born with spina bifida, stayed alive longer than they thought she would, but in her 30s, she passed away. And one of the things she said on her deathbed, she's lying there, she's about to pass away. She looks up at the ceiling and reaches her hand out and says, "It's so beautiful." And then she dies.
She must
So
be looking
again,
at you, Todd.
I doubt she was looking at me, but what's cool about that is, again, everyone else in the room, we're under this perceptional consciousness that is collective. We agree upon a reality that she no longer participated in, right? She saw something else. So is it wrong? We just didn't agree. We just didn't see it. So I don't know. I'm a big believer that in that type of stuff, I think sometimes when the mind is tweaked and things are a little off and people see things like, seeing spirits or anything like that, I believe those things are real. I believe that there is a filter, right? There's a reality that we agree upon and we don't go outside that reality. It's the exact same way that you didn't hear the words in that audio example that he played until he played the actual words, right? And then you could hear it. But it could have been other words and you would have believed that, right? So I think collectively we are, and he's going to go into this as well, that there is a filter that guards and protects us from the real reality. I guess maybe not protects us, but just kind of keeps us all within check into what is a perceived reality.
Now I'm going to tell you that your experience of being a self, the specific experience of being you, is also a controlled hallucination generated by the brain. Now this seems a very strange idea, right? Yes, visual illusions might deceive my eyes, but how could I be deceived about what it means to be me? For most of us, the experience of being a person is so familiar, so unified, and so continuous that it's difficult not to take it for granted. But we shouldn't take it for granted. There are, in fact, many different ways we experience being a self. There's the experience of having a body and of being a body. There are experiences of perceiving the world from a first-person point of view. There are experiences of intending to do things and of being the cause of things that happen in the world. And there are experiences of being a continuous and distinctive person over time, built from a rich set of memories and social interactions. Now, many experiments show, and psychiatrists and neurologists know very well, that these different ways in which we experience being a self can all come apart. And what this means is the basic background experience of being a unified self is a rather fragile construction of the brain, another experience which, just like all others, requires explanation. So let's return to the bodily self. How does the brain generate the experience of being a body and of having a body? Well, just the same principles apply. The brain makes its best guess about what is and what is not part of its body. And there's a beautiful experiment in neuroscience to illustrate this. And unlike most neuroscience experiments, this is one you can do at home. All you need is one of these and a couple of paintbrushes. Now, in the rubber hand illusion, a person's real hand is hidden from view, and that fake rubber hand is placed in front of them. Then both hands are simultaneously stroked with a paintbrush while the person stares at the fake hand. Now, for most people, after a while, this leads to the very uncanny sensation that the fake hand is, in fact, part of their body. And the idea is that the congruence between seeing touch and feeling touch on an object that looks like a hand and is roughly where a hand should be is enough evidence for the brain to make its best guess that the fake hand is, in fact, part of the body.
All right, so for those that are listening and not watching the video, there's this fake hand experiment that's going on, and there's a gentleman sitting at the table. He's got one hand on one side of the table, one hand on the other side of the table, and there's a cardboard divider between the two, so he can't see his left hand. Well, in place of his left hand on the other side of the cardboard divider is a fake hand next to his other real hand. So they're brushing the fake hand and they're brushing his real hand on the other side of the divider at the same time, so he's feeling that sensation. And then all of a sudden somebody comes in with a fork and stabs the fake hand, and he jerks his real hand that wasn't being stabbed at all away. So it was that sensation of fear that it was actually going to happen to him.
So you can measure all kinds of clever things, right? You can measure skin conductance and startle responses, but there's no need. It's clear the guy in blue has assimilated the fake hand. Now, this means that even experiences of what our body is a kind of best guessing, a kind of controlled hallucination by the brain. Now, there's one more thing. We don't just experience our bodies as objects in the world from the outside, we also experience them from within. We all experience the sense of being a body from the inside. And sensory signals coming from the inside of the body are continually telling the brain about the state of the internal organs, how the heart is doing, what blood pressure is like, lots of things. And this kind of perception, which we call interoception, is rather overlooked, but it's critically important because perception and regulation of the internal state of the body, well, that's what keeps us alive. Here's another version of the rubber hand illusion. This is from our lab at Sussex. And here people see a virtual reality version of their hand, which flashes red and back either in time or out of time with their heartbeat. And when it's flashing in time with their heartbeat, people have a stronger sense that it's in fact part of their body. So experiences of having a body are deeply grounded in perceiving our bodies from within. There's one last thing I want to draw your attention to, which is that experiences of the body from the inside are very different from experiences of the world around us. When I look around me, the world seems full of objects, tables, chairs, rubber hands, people, you lot. Even my own body in the world, I can perceive it as an object from the outside. But my experiences of the body from within, they're not like that at all. I don't perceive my kidneys here, my liver here, my spleen. I don't know where my spleen is, but somewhere. I don't perceive my insides as objects. In fact, I don't experience them much at all unless they go wrong. And this is important, I think. Perception of the internal state of the body isn't about figuring out what's there, it's about control and regulation, keeping the physiological variables within the tight bounds that are compatible with survival. When the brain uses predictions to figure out what's there, we perceive objects as the causes of sensations. But when the brain uses predictions to control and regulate things, we experience how well or how badly that control is going. So our most basic experiences of being a self, of being an embodied organism, are deeply grounded in the biological mechanisms that keep us alive. And when we follow this idea all the way through, we can start to see that all of our conscious experiences, since they all depend on the same mechanisms of predictive perception, all stem from this basic drive to stay alive. We experience the world and ourselves with, through, and because of our living bodies. Let me bring things together step by step. What we consciously see depends on the brain's best guess of what's out there. Our experienced world comes from the inside out, not just the outside in. The rubber hand illusion shows that this applies to our experiences of what is and what is not our body. And these self-related predictions depend critically on sensory signals coming from deep inside the body. And finally, experiences of being an embodied self are more about control and regulation than figuring out what's there. So our experiences of the world around us and ourselves within it, well, they're kinds of controlled hallucinations that have been shaped over millions of years of evolution to keep us alive in worlds full of danger and opportunity. We predict ourselves into existence. Now, I'll leave you with 3 implications of all this. First, just as we can misperceive the world, we can misperceive ourselves when the mechanisms of prediction go wrong. Understanding this opens many new opportunities in psychiatry and neurology because we can finally get at the mechanisms rather than just treating the symptoms in conditions like depression and schizophrenia. Second, what it means to be me cannot be reduced to or uploaded to a software program running on a robot, however smart or sophisticated. We are biological flesh and blood animals whose conscious experiences are shaped at all levels by the biological mechanisms that keep us alive. Just making computers smarter is not going to make them sentient. Finally, our own individual inner universe, our way of being conscious, is just one possible way of being conscious. And even human consciousness generally, it's just a tiny region in a vast space of possible consciousnesses. Our individual selves and worlds are unique to each of us, but they're all grounded in biological mechanisms shared with many other living creatures. Now, these are fundamental changes in how we understand ourselves, but I think they should be celebrated because, as so often in science, from Copernicus, we're not at the center of the universe, to Darwin, we're related to all other creatures, to the present day. With a greater sense of understanding comes a greater sense of wonder and a greater realization that we are part of and not apart from the rest of nature. And when the end of consciousness comes, there's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing at all. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very much.
He said some stuff in there earlier. I should have stopped you, but awareness of the inner body is interesting. Talking about like the VR thing with the heartbeat and the arm turning red. That was truly fascinating. I think if we actually like thought internally more often, we could get a better sense of our body's health and well-being. I had a chiropractor who did a lot. He was he was basically a 3-for-1 buy. You'd go to him and he would do chiropractic work on you, and all the while he's psychoanalyzing you. And then at the end he would massage, do chiropractic, and all the while he's doing psychology with you. And he would always tell me, Tim, you need to listen to your body. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? But genuinely, he was saying you need to think about and have your body go in, your brain kind of process like what's going on, the liver, your kidneys, how's your heart, and there's a little bit of, I think, meditation that can be done inwardly to like kind of listen to your gut and to your stomach, and you know what I mean. There's a certain power there that I think does exist. We don't do it often because our brains are so interested with the exterior, but I think that was kind of an interesting thing that he brought up there.
I would completely agree. I have had over this last year, we've taken a hiatus for multiple reasons, but one of them being some health things that I was going through. And in the end, what I found out was we start talking about consciousness and awareness of your body, and how the mind can get a little off, right? And what that means for the rest of your body. So what was happening with me basically was my mind was freaking out over the world around me, and I couldn't get a grip on it. There was nothing to freak out about. Everything was great, but it was manifesting into physical symptoms for me. Heart racing, digestive issues, breathing issues, headaches and all this kind of stuff. And in the end, it took, a simple anxiety medication to calm all that down. And all those physical symptoms that were real dissipated. So again, when we start talking about what happens in the mind, it controls so much. So Tim, even saying, like Anil said, it's just, there is, it's hard for us to listen to our mind. Like, I couldn't even listen to my body. Like, I knew what my body was doing, but I couldn't really listen to it, right? Because it was just affected by everything else, everything around me. But my mind was misfiring. It was saying something incorrect. And in return, it was causing, literally physical symptoms. It was nuts. So,
even this cold and flu season, it's funny. I had a quick little story of that. It's a small little version of what you're saying. I went to the urgent care, and I still had this fever. I'm like, guys, they were like, oh, hey, you again. Oh, I thought we gave you the Z-Pack, And I'm like, I know, right? I'm still here. They were like, well, we're going to do some blood tests and stuff. And and I told them a little bit about how I had some achiness over here on my side where, your gallbladder would be, or your liver. And I just said, it's like a 4 out of 10. Well, as soon as these ladies came back with the blood work, and like they kind of had like a ghost white look on their face, and they told me, you're going to the ER. Oh my gosh, my body started really like listening in, right? Your brain is like, okay, well, maybe the taste in my mouth is from this septic gallbladder that they think I have, or liver problem, And you get into that hypochondriac state, your body is like, that's where your brain goes awry. Your brain is awry. It's overthinking now. It's like, oh, maybe I do have it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm going to be having gallbladder surgery, right? Get to the hospital. They do scans, prod and poke me, keep me overnight. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, right? Nothing. All of it came back nothing. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. We didn't find a thing. Hey, at least we know, right? That's all good. But my brain then, I guess, was like, oh, okay. It was put back at ease, and it no longer felt the need to worry about that taste in my mouth or you know what I'm saying?
I do.
I was like, oh, okay. Well, it's none of that. And now all of a sudden it's just a stupid cold that I just got to get rid of. I don't know what it is. But my brain, man, it was all over the place until I heard the answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
neat.
Dude, it is super neat. And I have another example of that. So same kind of scenario as you. I had a really bad night. I couldn't get my blood pressure to go down. And it was freaking me out, man, terrifying me. And so by 5 a.m, I'm waking my wife up saying, we got to go to the ER. So we go to the ER. And I'm telling you guys, and this is no joke, and I'm sure some of you out there have experienced this. Now, again, my life is good. I don't have anything to complain about. I don't stress about anything. But this anxiety came from nowhere in my mind. I don't know. There might be something attached to it if I went and saw a psychiatrist. But in my world, it didn't exist. It just started creeping up and just kind of got worse and worse and worse. So on the way to the hospital, I'm like, I think I'm dying. My heart, I could feel my blood. Dude, my blood pressure was spiking. This must be what it feels like. And it scared me. And we ended up at the ER. Finally, they put me in a bed and they put the IV in me, right? And I keep looking back, and I'm looking back at the monitor that's up here, just kind of checking my blood pressure, checking my heart rate. And I keep looking back, and I see my my blood pressure start to go down to normal levels. My heart rate starts to go down to normal levels. And so I'm sitting there, and at one point I look back, and it's where it should be. It's a good blood pressure. It's a great heart rate for sitting there relaxing. And I look down at my arm, and I notice I just have an IV in. They haven't put anything in it. The whole time I was laying in that bed, I thought I was on some type of drip, something to calm me down. And I wasn't. It was all here. It was all here. So the
Placebo
second I
effect.
knew, oh my
Sure.
gosh.
Placebo effect.
The
sure.
second I knew that I was in that bed and they were taking care of me, everything calmed down. But at home, I was terrified. I couldn't get it to go down no matter what I did. So, dude, there is something that is so crazy with this mind and this perception. And, I say all that to say, like, reality, is it? There was nothing wrong with me. I mean, it was all in my head. So, again, you start to go... No, I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say,
Finish.
So, all of a sudden, it clicked in my head as I'm lying in that bed that it is anxiety, that there is something chemically wrong in my head. Now mind you, I had tried a tremendous amount of natural things prior to going on any type of medication or SSRI. It's not what I wanted to do, but I needed to. So I'm just saying that to say that if you're out there and you've got anything going on similar to that, it doesn't mean you have to be on it forever, but man, listen to your doctors. Maybe give it a try. It has changed the trajectory of how I feel and operate daily. And I'm not all like giddy now, and I'm not all not who I am. I still get sad. I still get happy. I just have better days, man. Like every day is a
Lower lows and higher, or you're more even.
Yes.
Peaks and valleys aren't as bad.
They're not as bad. And I never realized that they were, but they were.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick, I want, this is kind of a change of subject, but I think that it's interesting when people go into like, what do they call them? Deprivation chambers or the tanks, where they're floating in a salt solution. I've never done it. Have you done it, Todd?
No, I've never done it.
We got to do it. We should do it.
But I would love to do it.
I know. Well, okay, you could get over that. But, one thing I wanted to say about consciousness and something that I didn't quite hear in the TED Talk and the guy before, but it's kind of interesting. Your brain in a deprivation chamber gets bored. And it no longer has the body in front of it, right? You're laying on your back, you're in complete darkness, and you're floating. Mm-hmm. And that's why deprivation tank things are so amazing to people, supposedly, because your brain now has a no body, no reference of what it knew, and it starts creating the reality in this new space. So it's something to try. And I know another thing that, there was this video I saw, and I think we've all done this before, if we're honest. Have you ever sat there in the sun and you're on the beach, and you're on your chair, and you just let that sun just cook right there in your eyelids, right? And it's so bright orange red, you can kind of almost see your veins or see the skin structure of your eyelids, There was a experience or experiment they were doing with people where they were putting them under a light, and I think playing like white noise or something. And the similar thing happens, just like a deprivation chamber. Your mind goes to a place where it no longer has a body to look at. It's not, it starts to create day hallucinations in this new area, So I don't know. Give yourself homework tonight, everybody who's listened, and go find yourself the nearest spa that does deprivation. But it might be a fun thing to try to experience where your consciousness goes when it doesn't have the normal appendages to look at and the normal environments to be in. Because apparently you create something brand new. It's bored. It gets bored and it becomes like you embody into some different awareness.
Field trip.
There. Yeah, right.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, I think that's something we should do. Is Created by Human goes and gives it a shot.
Does a
man,
podcast in a deprivation chamber.
I don't know about podcasts. 'Cause I'm pretty sure we're in water. So,
but
afterwards,
we come out,
yeah,
we talk
afterwards
about it.
we'll come out.
Yeah.
I think that would be a lot of fun to do. Again, I am claustrophobic. It does
You
freak
can
me
get
out.
over
Like
it.
I've done MRIs, and they freak me out. Yeah. They totally freak me out. But
Well-
again, I haven't had one since being medicated, so they might be all right now.
Yeah, take a couple. What do you have? The CBD, GBD, gay,
CBD, gibbons. Yep.
Take that pill. I said gay in there. That was not meant to be an offense to the LG.
Well, I hope it wasn't.
QB. It just was improv. But yeah, take that pill and then go into your deprivation chamber. I bet you'll have a good time. I would actually probably
wanna
take
do
an
it.
edible or something like a little one of those Cheech and Chong ones they sell or something. Go in there.
Man, see, that's
see
the
what
thing,
that would be
dude.
like.
I know you. You're good with it. Like I've never done good with THC. It always has made me. I mean, ever since I was, when did I try it first? 16. Ever since 16, man, it's made me anxious. Like I just get super anxious. I don't feel well, and
Let's leave this part
that would
out,
that
actually.
would freak me out to be locked in a chamber.
I hear you. Well, then try. What is it? What is it? The kids are drinking. Oh gosh,
I can be in there with you, Todd. We can be in the same one
There you
together.
go.
We can float.
we can
that's
float
nice.
together.
What a bathing with friends.
Yeah.
There's this thing that, man, I gotta think of the drink. If they call it something, it's like one syllable, and it's a cough medicine.
Scissor?
I think they just, huh?
Scissor?
No,
Codeine?
it's I think it's based on something like a oh gosh, what's that cough syrup? I can't think of it. Like DM, the DM stuff. The stuff you're making meth out of and whatnot.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I forget what it's called. There's they call it green drink or something like that. But they were giving it to old people the other day on a YouTube thing. And
You're talking about purple drink?
Yeah, but I mean not purple drink, but something like it. I forget what it's called. I'll try to look it up and see if I'm here. I'll just look real quick.
Yeah, why don't
But
you
they were
just
taking
Google
it.
Because
I
I'm
know,
pretty
right?
sure you're talking about scissor.
No, it's not that. Hold on. Old people try.
Are you Googling old people try scissor? Have you ever seen those videos of like the 2 or 3 old ladies who are all getting high?
Yeah.
And they're like old, and they're like, dude, they are having a blast. Oh my gosh,
Right?
they're having so much fun. Yeah, they're having a great time.
Hold on.
What's going on? Is Google broken?
No.
Dead air.
Hold on.
Dead
Lean.
air.
Lean.
That's scissor.
Scissor. Yeah. So there's
Don't
this drink-
scissor. Yeah, that's what I.
lean. Is it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Lean.
So it says they try lean. Lean is a drink. Lean drink. The lean. Excuse me. The lean drink is. Hold on.
Please tell me it says scissor in that article you're reading.
It does say scissor. Lean,
Yeah.
also known as
AKA
purple drink,
purple drink.
or scissor,
Yeah.
is a recreational drug concoction made with cough syrup that has gained popularity, especially with young adults. Lean drink is a dangerous cocktail made by combining one or more prescription cough medicines, typically containing codeine and or promethazine. These products are described for serious respiratory conditions and are not available over the counter. This prescription syrup is typically combined with soda, often Sprite, and sometimes hard candy like Jolly Ranchers for added flavor. The color of this resulting beverage has earned the purple drink moniker. Cough syrup, so, yeah, I don't know, but people have like some strange effects with it. Like
what? What do they say? I mean,
I don't know. You should have seen
I
the
kind of
guys
would
taking
try
it.
some scissor, some lean.
I know. I like it was interesting. I was like, whoa. The people take a couple sips and then they're like, I don't feel a thing. And then they're like, well, maybe take a few more. And so they go, and next thing you know, they're just like, like, oh, what just happened? Like they just get all like relaxed and fall back. And it was interesting. I'd never heard of it. And I was like, oh man, that's weird. Probably not good for your kidneys. So don't do it. But.
Yeah, probably not good. I think that's what happens with a lot of these musicians and artists that are out there. They start mixing a lot of this stuff. Like, you know,
yeah,
on tour, they got Adderall, they've got some scissor in there.
They got a steroid shot.
I mean, seriously, like, so it's a whole concoction, and then all of a sudden you have respiratory issues and your heart stops. You know,
yeah,
and that's it, lights out. You know?
Apparently, I heard on NBC News the other day, MSNBC. Oh no, it was Seth Meyers, I think. It was one of those comedians. They were talking about how they found some sort of drug that they were mixing on the Republican Party's plane. I guess everybody's been talking about this weird mix of drugs that they're taking. And it's becoming quite the talk. You'll have to Google it, everybody. But I thought that was interesting. Like, oh, really? So we're mixing some of the hardcore prescription drugs and making a new one. Anyway, I don't know if it's true, but it was on the comic shows.
Fascinating.
All right, man.
Well, listen, guys. Here's the deal. We've talked about scissor. We've talked about lean, which are the same thing. But we spent a lot of time talking
purple
about
drink.
consciousness. Yeah, purple drink. Yeah. But we spent a lot of time talking about consciousness, and it's just something I want to really dive into this season and try to understand what's near death. Like, let's hear some more stories. What do other people say about consciousness? Like, it all ties together. And we're going to go into some alien stuff, man. We're going to go into all the weird stuff that we go into, and it all ties together, I'm telling you. And we're going to be able to start making these links and tying it all together. And you know, at the end of the season, are we going to have any answers? No.
We're going to have full understanding.
We might. I don't know. But I do think it's going to give us something to think about, right? It's going to be thought-provoking. It's going to maybe open our eyes a little bit more, open our minds a little bit more to the idea that, yeah, there is more out there. And I have to lean on that. Like I do.
Lean.
I have to lean on that. Lean.
Purple drink on that.
I have to scissor up on that a little bit. Just a little bit. Hey.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
I love you guys too. Have a good one, everybody.
Do it well. Bye.
Peace. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Consciousness. Created by human